Hi everybody, welcome to the show. Today's guest believes that your professional worth is not about what you know, but about how much you are willing to learn. And there's nobody better to speak about this than the very formidable Susannah Chambers. She is a coach at the London Stock Exchange Group, and she is an avid community leader within the Cambridge University. So without further ado, let's have a chat with Susannah. Hi, Susannah.
Hi, Mandy.
Was that okay?
That'll do.
So it's so good to see you.
Likewise.
And for you to be here. Thank you. So tell us about yourself. How did you get to where you are?
I came to where I am through learning to be comfortable being myself.
Wow.
And some of that work has been conscious and some of it has just been through trial and error, really. But I think underpinning all of that, there's been always a thread of purpose in my life that I've been really clear on right from when I was a teenager. And I've always been quite open expressing that. And that was that I felt my purpose in life is to bring joy. And that runs through everything that I've done or chosen not to do in my life. So I think it's been that conscious and, unconscious learning around who I am, what matters to me, and feeling very congruent. We use the word authentic all the time. I think that can get quite overused nowadays, but I prefer to use congruent, that I feel like I'm kind of integrated, with me. What you see is what you get, and there are aspects of my career portfolio where perhaps people might think that it's more performative, but I actually love the fact that what might seem a bit performative for people is actually really just me being me, because I feel really aligned with things. And I think I have inevitably followed some of the more predictable kind of pathways. After I finished school, I did my first degree. And then I was working in, first of all, a graduate trainee role in one of the Golden Circle law firms down on Fleet Street. I very quickly realised that was not aligned with my preferred culture for work at that time in my life. And I then pivoted into working in a totally different field, which was the world of adult learning and lifelong learning. So that was a huge part of my life for over 20 years. And then due to redundancy, and that absolutely, turned my world upside down at the time as well, being a single mum with 3 children to support. I really was just not sure where on earth I was going. And the outcome of that journey, a year or so of pretty much pursuing any work that I could get, was me discovering the world of agility and training as a certified Scrum Master. And that totally unlocked a whole world of opportunities and experiences in the tech and fintech sector, retail tech sector, where I've been Scrum Mastering, I've been Agile coaching, I've been Agile coach lead, and currently as an Agile delivery manager. And somehow or other, all the different strands have all come together to make a life that makes total sense to me.
And it's funny when that happens. Yeah. When you sort of can see that full eco life cycle just merging within your own kind of sphere. It's just like, whoa, how did that happen?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, again, one of the more formal learning parts of my journey, I did do a master's degree in educational learning and development. But I thought that was actually really interesting because at the point where I completed my master's degree, I actually graduated with my master's about a week before my now 18-year-old son was born.
Oh, wow.
So juggling working full time, being a mum with a toddler, being pregnant with my second son, and trying to get the dissertation done, was not one of the most enjoyable periods of my life, I have to admit. But what was really interesting with that experience was I think it really proved to me how resilient I could be. It proved to me that, like every other human, that you can get very close to wanting to quit stuff, even if you're not naturally a quitter, because I was very close to wanting to quit that, and I'm so glad I didn't. But also the fact that a lot of the skills I was using, I actually didn't consciously use a lot of those skills for, over 15 years later. And actually, I think that kind of proved to me a lot of the learning that I've done. It's not always been immediately apparent about how it has been valuable, but usually at some point in my life, I've ended up drawing on those skills. And I think lifelong learning is such a massively important part of my life in terms of my journey, but also about how I try and empower other people, to have that curiosity for learning and them feel like they can, get to a better place.
And I love the way that you frame things, and I love this lifelong learning. I think if people could just grasp that learning aspect, then they'd give themselves a break. Like, it's no big deal. If you if you do something and it's wrong, or actually if you do something and you find, oh, actually that works, then that's far better than beating yourself up. And with this whole kind of brain that we've got, because you talk about brain, you talk about evolving, and the music that you play and the singing that you do. I mean, I admire all of your gifts.
Oh, thank you, Mandy.
The thing, how this resilience bit, how important is that, do you think? Because you found something through doing that kind of work during the time that you were going to have your 18-year-old. And how important is that, do you think, that you actually found out about resilience?
I think it's hugely important. I mean, that's definitely been a very common thread throughout my entire life, but particularly where I think about where I've, pivoted and, adapted in kind of quite an agile way in my life. I've had to, I think, feel comfortable with that ambiguity about not knowing exactly where is this all going to end up, and just having that kind of intuitive gut instinct. And that, as I'm sure you're aware, it can be very tiring, because this concept of mental load, where it's not necessarily just kind of what we're physically expending our energy and effort on, but, all of that stuff like ruminating, mentally around, but what if this doesn't work out? Imposter syndrome, do I actually know what I'm doing? I'm trying to tell myself I know what I'm doing, but do I actually? And are other people going to think I know what I'm doing? All of that, I think, is quite a heavy mental load, and very draining.
Yeah.
But I think that the more that you practice that as a muscle, it builds that resilience to have a go, and to experiment and have that kind of, experimental, innovative mindset. And I do think that is so important, because it unlocks just totally different opportunities to maybe what the people around you are saying is possible.
Wow. I'm just sort of sitting here and I'm thinking about all the things that you've said, and my head is just spinning around. One of the things that you were saying was that, this kind of performative. Now, I want to ask you about that, because we all have to, when we're with people, we don't have to. We are just ourselves. But when we're on our own, we may have moments. We may have, reflective moments. We may be going through whatever emotions we're going through. And say, for example, we're going through a sad moment. We wouldn't necessarily bring all of that kind of emotion into, the relationships and circles that we're in. How do you continue that? Where's the divide? Where's that boundary for you then to really like be with Susannah?
It's a strange thing to be in a position where, in the professional musician dimension of my career portfolio, I'm on stage, and it's very, very rare that I feel nervous on stage, not least because I've been gigging for, over 30 years, right? So, it's a very familiar thing for me. But actually, I've said many times to people that when people tend to think of musicians or shows,
Yeah.
You tend to think, oh, you're going on stage, you're putting on a show. And I've often said that if people see me on stage performing, actually that's one of the most authentic times they're ever going to see me. Because for me, when I'm both interacting with an audience, it's a priority to me to try and make sure two things. First of all, and I think this is just as relevant in that environment as it is anytime I'm working in the office or I'm working in a team, I want to interact with people so that they, A, feel better when they leave than when they came, and B, that they felt like they mattered in that interaction. And whenever I'm singing songs, and it can be quite overwhelming sometimes, if you're going through your own challenges in life, but, every word of those songs, I actually really feel it, every word, and that's where I'm saying that actually that is just totally me on display, because when I'm singing, that's a natural form of expression for me. And because I'm really kind of trying to put myself in the perspective of, who might be singing that song, who might be saying those words, I do just feel really like my soul is totally on display. So it's kind of the opposite, I think, to what people would expect in terms of it being a performance, if you see what I mean. So it's not a performance for me. It's like that is me.
So this kind of real spiritual side of you comes out, and you are, that's who you are.
Very much so, yeah. And I mean, so much so, in fact, I've commented before that, touch wood, thankfully, over the last 30 plus years of gigging, I think there's only been a couple of times that I've struggled with my voice, for a gig, which is, has been pretty good going, really. But I have commented on occasions where, if I slightly, have a sore throat or I lose my voice or something, I literally feel like I have had a personality transplant. If I can't sing for a few days, I just feel like a totally different person. So I think that's something that's really guided my interactions in life and career, particularly from an agile coaching standpoint as well, like thinking around, every person, is going to have their very unique preferred way of how they feel best expressing themselves. And it's just that thing for me as well about how do you find ways to enable people to find their voice in a way that is going to feel right for them.
Very important. Yeah, very important. And I applaud you for having that, at the forefront of your coaching practice.
Thank you.
When would you have imagined you were going to be doing what you're doing now when you were younger? And
great question. I'd always imagined when I was a teenager, I could imagine myself working in the world of business and a corporate environment, which is, definitely part of why my first degree, I studied communications and management. So the management side of it was definitely me having my head in the kind of corporate space. But then when I pivoted into the world of adult learning, I'll be honest with you, I kind of didn't really think that was ever going to happen then. There was a very strong broadcasting and media production element to the communication side in my degree. And when I was on my gap year, as well as teaching, I also worked for West German Broadcasting for a short while on a live TV chat show. And I'll be honest with you, I won't go into details for why, I needed to come back to England, but, I was so in the zone in that environment, I definitely would have loved to stay there. So to come back to your question, would I have imagined I'm doing what I'm doing? Yes, I would, because I think, again, there have always been those things around, being in that interacting with people environment. But what I would say is that there was definitely a kind of 20-year period or so where, particularly as I started getting into life as a mum, where for a while, I suppose it just felt like it was getting further and further and further away from being likely. So it has taken quite a lot of concerted effort, to kind of say yes to opportunities when I've spotted them, even if I've looked at opportunities and thought, it's not really that much money, or, somebody might laugh at me, and I've just thought, well, if it sounds like it's going to be fun and it sounds like it's the kind of thing that I've got skills that I can do, why not? Why not?
So throughout your kind of career, throughout your journey, really, you have been harnessing, honing in on your skills and not shying away from trying things out and doing things. And that must have quite a profound impact and effect on your kids, who must look at you and think, wow, mum's doing this. And do they ever say things?
They do. It's interesting, really, because, I suppose when you grow up in a particular environment, you don't kind of see what's on your doorstep, right? Because it is what it is.
Yeah.
There was always a joke when my daughter, my youngest, she was about 5 or 6, and I remember being around the house and I was singing, and she said, "Mummy, stop singing, it's really annoying." And I'd say, I get paid to sing, and then in my own home, be quiet, it's so annoying. So I think at that age, probably not really having that full picture, but the journey that we've been on as a family unit, we've really pulled together, overcoming a number of challenges as a family unit. And I think as the kids get older, I think that, they realise more and more that, maybe it wasn't the most conventional journey that I've taken, and that I have really had to put myself out there. One of the phrases I always use with the kids, we kind of have a bit of a joke about it. I always say, what's our life mantra? And they say, if you don't ask, you don't get. and I think that, and the other one that I always say to them, which, I hope that they've really picked up from my approach to life and career, is what's the worst that can happen? Yeah. Somebody might laugh at you. Somebody might think you've made the wrong choice, but then, it's very cliche again to say, isn't it? But I think it's better that way than not trying it or not finding out and then thinking, oh, well, what if?
Yeah.
So I definitely feel that, they have picked up on that. And it is interesting sometimes when they comment, if some of their friends say, I saw that picture of your mum doing X, Y, Z, and I think sometimes that they don't think, that, oh, actually that's quite unusual, that my mum is doing that,
Yeah.
I think they are realising that the older they get. Yeah.
So you've got to where you are and you do many things outside of work as well. What sort of things do you do that, are your sort of top things that you can't let go of, you won't let go of?
In terms of my career portfolio?
Yeah.
As I've already alluded to, I just could not fathom not performing the music.
Okay.
It just, it runs through me like a stick of rock. There's just no way that I could imagine letting go of that, especially now that I'm gigging so regularly. So that's definitely a really important factor. And the other thing, again, it's been wonderful being able to do the coaching teaching at the University of Cambridge as well, which I'm in the 3rd year now of doing that.
Wonderful.
And that was a kind of progression actually from me studying on the diploma during COVID. That was one of my self-funded lockdown learning things. And the other one that I did, and actually what inspired me to enroll on that course, was I also self-funded to do a leadership coaching course with Harvard Extension School during COVID. And that really kind of reignited my curiosity for coaching. And I'd actually got my first coaching qualification way back in 2000 when distance learning, and correspondence courses were, yes, they were happening, but it was nothing like now where, we've got the infrastructure so much more for that online learning. So that was absolutely amazing. And I really think with the learning side of it, it's so important to just be very flexible and open to where possibilities may take you, which is why I love the teaching and why I wouldn't want to let go of that either now, because being 3 years into being in that teaching role at Cambridge, it's endlessly fascinating. Every student, that I teach is just lights me up, because it's just fascinating hearing these different perspectives, every student that I teach. So I think at this stage, I would find that really difficult to let go as well as part of my portfolio.
And I mean, they must love you, especially the way that you are with each person, they are unique and they must get that, lovely energy from you as well.
Thank you, Mandy. Yeah, it's fantastic, because as well as teaching the full study days in the big groups, I do have my own tutorial group every week. So 8 weeks every semester, I have my own tutorial group one evening. And I mean, it is amazing, to get such positive feedback from the students. And when you really sort of see them, blossom on that journey, it's just the most rewarding thing. But, having said that, I love that in that teaching and learning context, but then just coming back to the music, because I do think actually on reflection that this is a really, really important key to explain what makes me tick. So in terms of performing music, they are not the best paid gigs, but the most rewarding gigs for me are those in care homes and sheltered housing. Oh, wow. And, when I started gigging as a solo artist, I was going into care homes, didn't really know what I was doing, didn't really know how I was going to use my equipment. I was kind of having to learn all of that, and getting help and support and guidance with that. But I remember walking into a room in this care home, and again, I see parallels with this, with every team I work in, if I'm working in Agile or if I'm teaching students, I walked into this room and I remember the room was really, really dark, and pretty much all of the residents in this care home, they were either staring at the wall or, they had their eyes closed or what have you. And I remember thinking, I don't want to wake them up, I don't want to start singing. And then I started my music, and the first song was Somewhere Over the Rainbow. So when I sang those first two notes, it was like everybody just woke up.
Oh, wow.
And I've got a shiver down my spine just remembering it now. And, I often say as well that when I get a shiver down my spine, it's very intuitive for me that there's something kind of that is tapping into my purpose. And seeing them just absolutely light up made me think, wow, this is like, you used the word spiritual earlier. It's like, I'm using skills I've got. I'm doing a job. I'm in a contract for delivering a service, but actually it's so much more than this. And, I've never met these people before, but I know that there's something that's really important about that value and that experience that they've had from me being there with them.
I mean, I've got this sort of belief and understanding that things that, that it's a karmic connection. So, us sitting here, this is like a karmic thing. And also like for you singing to people in care homes or in, wherever they, the good karma there, you're do you know what I mean? That effect of lifting people's spirit, and
definitely
good for you. It's just so admirable. So I'm going to ask you a few quick questions. What moments would you say shaped your career path?
Well, definitely redundancy.
Okay.
Big time. I mean, that was absolutely, in my mind, it was absolutely catastrophic at the time. And I've been made redundant twice in my life. The first time was just under 11 years ago, and the most recent time was about 18 months ago. Okay. And I can honestly say, hand on heart, that clearly I'm not going to say, it's great to be made redundant. Clearly I would never say that. But actually for me, both times, what felt like the end of the world at the time actually ended up being a total kind of like Phoenix moment in terms of, what's going to happen? What am I going to do? Going through that whole thing about anxiety about, am I going to be able to find anything else? And actually both times it actually really led me to different areas that I never would have considered.
Yeah. So in a way, I think any kind of adversity at the time is really severe. But like you said earlier, the fact that you've you were so resilient. So it's interesting, isn't it? This whole kind of like knowing something and then learning. I mean, knowing something is almost like you're full up, nothing else is going to go in, whereas learning means you've got to let go, and you've got to kind of...
That's a really amazing concept, Mandy. I love that, because you're right. Because if we again think about, mental capacity to handle thinking about things, and like we said, not ruminating, and even if you're really strong, with this concept of growth mindset, like Carol Dweck encourages us, to be open to learning new things in different ways. I do agree with you. I think that both from a kind of bandwidth mental point of view, but also from a kind of maturing point of view, that whole being open to unlearning what we absolutely believed before was right, or what was the way. Yeah. And I think that I wish sometimes that there was as much emphasis in society on the importance of rewarding where people have been brave to unlearn things, not just to learn things, because there seems to be this constant thing around, you've got these qualifications, you're learning this new content or you're learning this new skill. But you're quite right. I don't think that anybody really ever refers to the whole thing about, but in order to evolve to being in a readiness to learn new things, there's not room to keep everything. You can't keep all these, fixed ideas as they are. Like you said, you've got to let go of some of those.
I think so. And also the brain, just to kind of have that, I can't remember the doctor's name. Might be an American guy called Dr. Huberman. He often talks about how the circuits, so there's two ways. So one way is like, for example, if I never go to a club or a place where music is playing, I'm never really going to be able to hear that. That means those circuits are just going to die away, like use it or lose it. But then there is this aspect of actually cognitive overload. So if I have no space in my brain to learn new concepts and ideas, because it's just full of other stuff, then no matter how hard I try, I'm not going to learn something. And the other thing is the kind of way that we're all wired differently. So some people can learn better in the morning and other people learn better in the evening. So there's all of that as
Absolutely,
well.
yeah. And it's great hearing you talk about that in the wider application in life, because inevitably being from a teaching background, that is covered a lot, of course, with this kind of catch-all phrase of, learning styles. And of course, there's actually a lot of debate now about this concept of learning styles, and are you kinesthetic, are you auditory, are you visual, and what have you? And, some people contesting whether that's actually a thing even.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I personally think that, my experience is that there is validity in that, but I think that the whole thing around, how people learn in different ways at different points. I mean, one of the challenges I have learning in the music work I do is that in one of the main band setups I'm in now, it's very different to what I used to do. I'm still singing, but I'm singing and I'm playing double bass at the same time. Which obviously is kind of that, like that patting your head, rubbing your tummy type of thing, while you coordinate.
Really
yeah. Well, yes and no. But again, it's a bit like a muscle, like developing that. But, I have sticking points with my learning, even after, hundreds of hours of gigs. There are even now particular tunes that I just cannot get in my head.
Okay.
There's like one or two bars, and I literally can spend hours and hours and hours playing that over and over again, and I just get a mental block on it.
Yeah.
And I think again, that's really important, and not just in terms of learning skills or, learning new concepts, but generally in terms of being kind and forgiving to yourself on your journey to, adapt and explore, where might you want to go? What kind of things might you want to try out? I think that's really important to actually just have that kind self-talk. Because for a long, long time, for example, with things like that, I would be thinking, I'm a professional musician. I should just be able to get that. Why can't I remember that? But then hand on heart, I know that I've tried, many different techniques to try and learn it. And I think there does come a point, there's this concept of radical acceptance, right? Where you think, okay, so I'm giving it my best shot. I'm doing my best to learn new things. But do you know what? Like you said, we are all wired so differently. And actually, maybe there is just a fundamental misalignment with some skill sets and how we're inclined to be interested in things. And that's another really important point that I've learned over the years, that, I think growing up, I kind of felt as though, if you're committed to growth and developing your skills, almost as though you're obligated to feel like you should be interested in everything. Yeah. Or if you've got an academic skill set, or you've just got your study skills, or, you're tenacious enough that eventually it will come.
Yeah.
And actually, I've just had to radically accept along the route that there are some areas where I could work on something 24 hours a day and it would still not really align with my interests. Yeah. And just saying, I'm not really interested in that. Actually, I don't really care about that. I don't really find it that interesting. That seemed like a really kind of bold thing to say for the first time, but it was necessary.
Yeah. I mean, I think, it's like, if you're not interested in something, that's great. But if you're interested in something and you want to learn it, you're not getting it, or I think that's hard.
Yeah, definitely.
But not being interesting is important to. It's important to know what you like, and
definitely, definitely
in terms of that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Susannah, we're just running out of time. I've got so much to ask you. Right, so I'm going to ask you something. Right. What are you terrible at but secretly enjoy? 60-second question.
Oh, what am I terrible at but secretly enjoy? I am really, really terrible at choosing decent quality TV programmes. Which sounds like a ridiculous example, but because I get so little downtime, you would expect with the time I get to enjoy watching TV that I would, choose some really high quality programming. And actually, it's a bit of a joke that, with my nearest and dearest, my guilty secret about the absolutely terrible TV shows that I end up watching. And I actually feel like it is a bit of a fail, because I think, with that time that I could spend actually just enjoying, zoning out, watching TV, I could at least choose something that's actually decent. But instead, I just like watch brain rot, basically. And I just totally just like zone out. And it's I think that's a fail, because I think I could probably like expand my cultural horizons a lot more if I actually watched something.
But the zoning out is probably a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true, actually.
Yeah.
I suspect that is probably why I gravitate to that.
Yeah.
Because I suppose there are so few times in my life where, well, as a mum as well, because obviously my children are older now, so they're a lot more, self-sufficient and what have you than they were. But just as a mum, but also obviously as a working woman, feeling constantly like, I'm on it, I've got to remember this, X, Y, Z. And actually, just to have that outlet where it's just like, this is so bad, it's good. Like,
I like it. So if you could acquire a power, one power, what would it be? If you could have any one power?
Yeah, flight.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and this has been a real thing since I was a little girl, because I always used to remember my dreams really vividly every night, right up until my firstborn son was born. And then overnight, I just suddenly stopped remembering my dreams. It's really bizarre. Yeah, but I always had this recurring dream about, I felt somebody was running after me. Oh. And then just when I could feel they were just about to get my ankle, I flew.
Oh, wow.
And they never caught me.
Oh, wow.
And I just feel like that would be really awesome to actually experience for real what I used to dream about so often.
Yeah. Nice.
And what that would actually feel like. Yeah.
Lovely. So I'm going to ask you another question. And this is about, this is more of a wisdom kind of question. If you had a billboard for future professionals, what would it say?
Know your purpose.
Oh, lovely. Know your purpose.
And it sounds, again, very cliche. It sounds very obvious, but in my experience, particularly from a coaching angle, it is incredibly common for people to go through decades of their life and going through the motions and actually not be able to clearly articulate what they believe their purpose in life is.
Yeah.
And because I believe that's at the heart of finding fulfillment and that congruence and that alignment, about we've all got 24 hours a day, right? So let's be clear on why we're here. If tomorrow didn't come, what would we want to feel like we had achieved in that time that we'd got? And it, it's really motivating for me through the coaching as well to try and enable people to even take the time out, give themselves the permission of almost the luxury for some people of thinking, I've never really thought about what my purpose is before. I've just kind of done the next thing, on the progression. Yeah. But I think it's a really deeply human question to answer. Yeah. And I find that it's very important for people to be able to verbalise that, because if they can't verbalise it and be clear about it, it's almost like your elevator pitch, right? It's almost like your elevator pitch for who you are. And I think if people become comfortable knowing their purpose and that they can talk about it and they can just reel that off, I think a lot of the decision-making process in life becomes a lot more straightforward.
Yeah, I like that. Know your purpose. I like that. How would you define success?
Well, I think I've just referred to it really. For me, success is thinking, if tomorrow didn't come, would I feel proud of who I was?
Well, I'm definitely proud of you.
Thank you, Mandy. Thank you. Great questions as well. I love them.
It's just so wonderful to have this experience with you. I've followed you on LinkedIn, and I just remember thinking, wow, this woman, she's just like, but you have your pathway has really grown. You've really made that, coaching, learning, that, badge, like you've got that badge. And and it resonates with me hugely, because when we're in that learning kind of zone and mind, humility just comes because we're not sort of sitting there knowing it all. It's this, I've heard a few designers who talk about design, and because in Agile, we want things to emerge, but having a kind of a stickler mindset or a stickler personality of, no, my way is the right way, and how will things evolve? How will you create something magical and beautiful? I think the learning is huge. Definitely. And what you've said there is really powerful, Mandy, as well, in terms of a concept that I often promote, and it's a Japanese concept called Shoshan, and it's this concept of beginner's mindset, basically. So earlier we were talking about growth mindset, and beginner's mindset, I think, is really, really important, because like you said, it is that concept that whatever journey we've been on, it doesn't matter how old we are, it doesn't matter what experiences we've had. I think, how can that be more exciting than every person you meet thinking, I could learn something new from this person, because they've experienced stuff that I have never experienced. And so I think beginner's mindset is really, really important. And again, if I may just give an example, when I used to work in retail tech, we had Secret Santa
one year. And there was a particular book that I was mentioning to a colleague that I really thought would like this book that I had bought from a secondhand bookshop when I was a teenager. And this book is, even now, I always cite it as having really guided my life's path and my whole mindset, really. And it's called Zen and the Art of Making a Living.
Oh.
Yeah, and I think it's by Bolt, I think was by the author. And it's decades old. You know, you don't hear about it talked anywhere near as much as some of the other kind of best-selling books. But I absolutely love that book because it's all about creative career design. And for anybody watching as well, you know, I would just really encourage anybody that is either trying to explore their purpose, think around what would I like to learn?
Yeah.
What can I already learn about myself and about new things without feeling like I've got to spend loads of money on a course or, you know, I've got to radically change my life in some way. If you're looking for a very gentle point of entry to understanding how does your purpose and your passions align with ways to basically make a living, it's a fantastic book. And in the Secret Santa this year, I actually bought this colleague a copy of this book.
Oh, wow.
And what happened was quite remarkable because this was a colleague I was working with in the Agile space, but they'd always harboured a passion for landscape gardening.
Oh, wow.
But they'd never gone into it. And what actually happened, and they told me this, you know, after we stopped finishing working together as well, they said that they'd actually gone ahead, they'd done a course in landscape gardening, and they'd set up their own business in landscape art gardening. And they said that that was, you know, significantly contributed to by reading that book. So again, that's just one example, but I think, you know, it is absolutely amazing to think around, you know, what can we, you know, not just learn in terms of skills, but about ourselves and maybe things that, not just that we want, but things that we want to choose to reject going forward, you know, because a bit like you were saying about space in your brain for things, that whole letting go thing. I mean, I know the Mel Robbins concept of, you know, let them, is massive at the moment as well. And I think that thing around, you know, letting go of feeling like you've been on a different pathway, people feel uncomfortable with that, I think, for a variety of reasons. You know, I think sometimes people associate that with maybe in their own terms or maybe by others being perceived as having failed. But if there was one thing that I would definitely say from my own life's path is that actually there were multiple touch points where, you know, I could have thought, if I have this change of direction, it'll seem like I failed.
Yeah.
But you've got to get to a position where you actually don't care anymore, actually. I mean, beyond the actual, you know, responsibilities as a parent or, you know, in terms of legal, ethical, diversity considerations, you know, if you're working with organisations, clearly. But outside of that, you know, get to the point of being comfortable that actually, I thought I wanted that, but I've learned I don't want that anymore, and that's okay. Yeah, a new learning. Yeah, and if you're doing that, giving strength to other people to think that maybe they could do that too. Yeah, definitely, yeah. Susannah, it's been wonderful to have you here. Thank you so much. So people, how can they get hold of you? Through LinkedIn? Yeah. LinkedIn is definitely a great place to make contact. I am, as you know, I'm very active on LinkedIn. That's how we met. And I always say to people, like, colleagues have commented, you know, if you want to know Susannah, look at her LinkedIn because it is quite an eclectic feed. So that's definitely the best point of contact. And then invariably on there, I post things relating to my different areas of my career portfolio as well. So that's definitely the go-to place. Brilliant. Thank you, Susannah, so much. Pleasure. It's been, thank you, it's Mandy. Just gone too quickly. Thank you so much. It's been fantastic. Bless you. Well, that's it, folks. I hope you loved this episode as much as I did. And I hope you learned something. Take care. Till the next time. Bye.